Welcome back. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis appears to be changing his tune on Ukraine after some criticism from within his own party. In an interview that's right now still being published in print in the New York Post, it's going to air on Fox's streaming service by Piers Morgan soon, DeSantis referred to Vladimir Putin as a war criminal, who he said should be held accountable for the invasion of Ukraine. DeSantis also said Ukraine has a right to the land seized by Russia, and he called Putin's decision to invade a mistake. This is the same Ron DeSantis that referred to the conflict in Ukraine earlier this month, not that long ago, as simply a territorial dispute and said it was not a vital interest to the United States. Can both things be made true? Joining me now on set, Eugene Scott, senior politics reporter for Axios, Eugene Robinson, Washington Post columnist and an NBC News political analyst, and Sarah Longwell, who is friends with people named Eugene. She's a publisher of football work. Anyway, Mr. Scott, I will start with you here. I think it's fascinating with DeSantis. Is this a flip-flop or not, right? To Tucker Carlson, let me put up again what he said. While the U.S. has many vital national interests, becoming further entangled in a territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not one of them. To what he said to Piers Morgan, is this a flip-flop or is this an evolution?
Well, it could be either, and it also could be what some Republican lawmakers have said, that he's naive and perhaps just really is not as informed on this issue, as he needs to be leading the Republican Party. I was in Florida earlier this week and talking to some voters, and some were saying that, we don't really know where DeSantis stands on a lot of issues, including foreign policy, and I think this situation is revealing that to those in his party as well as those outside of it.
Sarah, Donald Trump flip-flops on everything. And he's flip-flopped on, we made a point, I think on immigration, he flip-flopped 38 times.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
John Kerry flip-flopped once on Iraq funding, right? It became a huge issue.
Huge deal.
Huge
right.
deal.
Yeah.
Is this a big deal for DeSantis or not?
Yeah, I mean, DeSantis is trying to figure out what it means to run for president and be in the national arena. And this was always the question about DeSantis, right? Could he live up to the hype? I talk to voters all the time in focus groups, and they are sort of generally ready to move on from Trump. They're worried he's not electable, and they like Ron DeSantis. But their relationship with him is very shallow, right? They've only seen him in Florida yelling at reporters, yelling at kids in masks, yelling at Disney. What's he going to be like when he's toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, who is another person that they like? And what is it going to be like when he realizes that there's new rules, where Donald Trump basically has no rules, can do anything, right. People will still love him, and Ron DeSantis has to actually try to ply a trade of running for president?
One of the things we've learned with Trump, Eugene, is that anybody that tries to be like Trump gets held to a higher standard, right?
Yeah,
Marco Rubio tried, and he got, it just does it. All these Trump imitators don't get away with doing the things that Trump gets to, and I think DeSantis is probably sitting there going, Trump flip-flops all the time on this issue. He doesn't get hit.
Exactly, but guess what? You're the governor of the, third most populous state in the country.
Sorry, New York.
Yeah, sorry, New York, but Florida is ahead of you now. And so that is a big deal. You ought to have some opinion, some knowledge of the war in Ukraine, which is a really, really big deal that does affect your state and a lot of people in your state and from your state. So, and it was a flip-flop. I mean, that's what it was. It was a territorial dispute to war criminal. That's a flip-flop.
So I want to put another topic out here on DeSantis. Trump seemed to bully him into defending him from the Manhattan DA. So, Sarah, that's one way to look at it. Or I look at it as he mitigated an issue, both on the Ukraine thing, calmed the Republican establishment down, and trying to make sure Trump doesn't come after him anymore. Is he being smart and savvy about the Republican base, or is he showing himself that you can bully him? You can either bully him into a different position on Ukraine or bullying him into attacking Alvin Bragg.
Yeah, no, this is what I mean about he's learning a lesson this week, and he is getting bullied. And part of it is it's clear that he doesn't quite know who he is. He has decided on a strategy, and his strategy is to run right alongside Trump. I'm going to have the same position on Ukraine. I'm going to have the same position on Medicare, Social Security. And is that tenable? Because you can't out-Trump Trump. Elizabeth Warren did this a little bit, where she kind of tried to, run alongside Bernie, only to realize then at some point there was no lane left for her. And Ron DeSantis could find himself in that sour spot as well.
Eugene?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting to see what DeSantis believes it's the best way to wade into this particular argument. It doesn't serve him well to defend Alvin Bragg, and so it was an easy decision for him that might not have been primarily motivated by Trump. Maybe he
But
came
Trump's
out,
people kept beating him up for not saying anything, and then he finally felt like, I thought he was kind of snarky in how he did it. Hey, I don't know how what it goes into hush money payments, which I thought was
Yeah.
In the moment, I thought it was a little savage.
That was snarky.
Yeah.
But why are all the people who want to beat Donald Trump defending Donald Trump? I mean, this is not like not the way you're going to beat Donald.
What is
Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, DeSantis, they're all defending him
because they want his supporters, right?
Right. They
need his supporters. You cannot beat Donald Trump without risking losing the people who love Donald.
You're going to have to take some risks to beat Donald Trump.
All right. What do we make of Donald Trump's evisceration of Ron DeSantis' record in Florida? That's the other thing. Like, what Trump will do is he will create new negatives for DeSantis that DeSantis didn't know he had in Florida. That is something he can do, Sarah.
Yeah, but this is why Eugene is right. He has to. DeSantis is going to have to go at Trump. Look at what Trump is doing. Trump is going to attack DeSantis. It doesn't have to be consistent. It's just going to be crazy. Yeah. It's just going to be crazy.
He has no rules. He doesn't play by a rule book.
That's right.
And in fact, it's not consistent. He has called DeSantis a good governor. He said, oh, he's fine in Florida. He's just not ready for prime time. Now he's a terrible governor.
But as Sarah said, it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter. But DeSantis is going to have to figure out that he's got to go at Trump and that everybody will smell the fear on him. Those voters, the voters who like DeSantis, also like Trump. And if Trump continues to alpha him and Ron DeSantis is kind of trying to do snarky things, we all enjoyed that answer on Stormy Daniels. You know who didn't like it? Trump supporters. They want to see unequivocal support of Trump. And this is the box that these Republican candidates are going to find them in. And if they get lured into just defending Trump all the time, talking about Trump all the time, Trump will be the nominee again.
I also think that attacking DeSantis in Florida and decreasing his favorability ratings isn't going to be as hard for Trump as some people think. Everyone talks about how well DeSantis is liked in Florida. I don't think he's liked as much as people think. And he has far more critics who, once Trump comes forward and says, and remember this, they're going to go, we also don't like that about DeSantis.
Speaking of likability, Joe Biden's approval numbers are going down. Gene Robinson. What do you make of that?
You know, they stay in his range, and
we're at the low range.
It's a low range.
Yeah,
it's a low range.
We're in the 30s.
You know, I mean, I think
this was a drop from 45. They had him at 45. They now have him at 38.
Okay, right. And you know, there are other polls that have him at 45. There was a Rasmussen poll, for what it's worth, that had him, you know, like at 47, 49, something like. I mean, you know, almost parity. But the thing is, it doesn't go over 50. I
have a theory, Sarah, that actually Biden never benefits from bad news with Trump. It actually hurts him. Because people think, God, I'm so tired of Trump and Biden. Even though Biden does benefit when actually at the ballot box if it were Biden v. Trump. Like, in a weird way, Biden doesn't benefit from the political environment Trump creates, but he would in a one-on-one matchup.
Right. He benefits when there's a direct contrast, right? So, and Democrats in general, when they are contrasted with Trumpy, election-denying extremists...
At a ballot box.
At a ballot box, the voters will go there. In general, though, day-to-day, voters aren't that... I saw this every time in 2022 going into this. People wanted to vote for Republicans. They just didn't want to vote for those Republicans. And they didn't love Joe Biden, but they were happy to vote for Democrats because Republicans were crazy.
Eugene Scott, how does the White House think their low poll numbers, what they mean?
Well, I would imagine that they would argue that they haven't moved forward with implementing all of the things that they say they want to use these next 2 years to implement that they accomplished for the past 2 years. And everyone I talked to on the Hill and the Democratic leadership said, just give us some time. Once we deliver for the people what we said we would deliver for, people will begin to like us again. We don't know, because we also don't know that people are paying that much attention.
It's possible 45 is the new 50, just like when we said 50 was the new 60. And maybe that's where we are in a polarized time. I don't know. Anyway, Eugene Scott, Eugene Robinson, not named Eugene, Sarah Longwell. Good to see you all. Thank you all.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.